All right, let's jump right into the truly fascinating, sometimes bewildering world of Dutch politics.
It really is something, isn't it?
If you've been following the news, you know upcoming elections are on the horizon. And the first thing that might strike you is just the sheer number of political parties involved.
Absolutely.
We're talking about 54 parties that have registered to participate. Now, that's actually, a noticeable decrease from the 70 we saw last time, but still 54.
It's still a huge number.
It sounds like a lot to wrap your head around, doesn't it?
Definitely.
So our mission today, using the excellent source material you shared from the News van de Dag YouTube channel, is to explore the intriguing complexities of this Dutch multi-party system.
And voter behavior, too.
Exactly. Delve into voter behavior and uncover some of the unique campaign strategies. This deep dive is designed to be your shortcut, really, to being well-informed on a topic that, at first glance, might feel incredibly overwhelming.
And what's really at the heart of this isn't just about the numbers. It's about, the very nature of democratic representation and how a system works to balance that with effective governance.
That's it.
It's a fundamental challenge, really, for any democracy.
You've highlighted the crucial underlying issue right there. So let's zoom in on the mechanics then. When we talk about 54 registered parties, what are the practical hurdles they face just to get on the ballot?
Right, because not all of them are actually going to make it.
Not even close, probably.
Well, that's right. To even get on the ballot, a party needs to collect signatures from supporters in different areas, different municipalities,
Okay.
and also pay a fee, €4,500. All of this has to be done by the mid-September deadline.
So there's a financial barrier and an organizational one.
Exactly. And when we look back in 2021, a record 17 parties actually gained seats in Parliament.
17.
Yeah, and 4 of those were entirely new, including the Farmer Citizen Movement, BBB, and JA21.
Right, I remember that.
The voting threshold for a single seat in the Dutch system is remarkably low, just 0.7% of the votes.
Seems tiny.
Yet despite that seemingly low bar, it's incredibly difficult for many of these smaller parties to achieve it. Many often poll well below 0.5%, making that 0.7% pretty significant leap, actually.
And this brings us to a really interesting aspect of voter psychology, doesn't it? There's this phenomenon where voters, maybe on election day itself, switch from smaller parties they might initially prefer.
Yeah.
Why? Because of the fear that their vote will be lost if their chosen party doesn't make it past that 0.7% threshold.
That strategic voting idea.
It's almost like a strategic game theory problem for every single voter, isn't it? Though it's worth noting, as you pointed out, for a party like the BBB, its eventual success wasn't really a shock to pollsters.
No, not really. It was polling at 17% a full 4 weeks before the election. So, the signs were there.
Okay, so it wasn't out of the blue.
But this whole lost vote phenomenon, it raises an important question for you, the listener, the voter.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel confident casting your ballot when you're faced with so many choices and that very real risk of your vote being perceived as lost?
Yeah.
It's a core dilemma in such a fragmented landscape.
That's a core tension, absolutely. And it leads us directly into the ongoing debate about implementing a formal electoral threshold.
Right. This comes up a lot.
The VVD, for example, a major center-right party, they proposed a 2% threshold. Silvio Erkens, a prominent VVD parliamentarian, was leading that proposal.
I remember that push.
Yeah, citing the need to reduce this fragmentation and make forming stable governing coalitions much easier. I mean, it sounds like a logical step for governability, right?
You'd think so. From a purely functional perspective, maybe. But what's striking here is the stark political reality. Despite the VVD's clear proposal, all other parties in Parliament voted against it.
Every single one.
Every single one. This indicates a complete lack of parliamentary support for such a measure, highlighting the deep division among elected representatives on this very topic.
Wow.
It reveals that for many, representation of diverse voices is seen as absolutely paramount, even if it complicates forming a government later.
Okay, but now here's a surprising twist, though. While the politicians are against it, a Hart van Metterland panel showed that a surprising 75% of the public is actually in favor of an electoral threshold.
75%, that's a huge majority.
That's a massive disconnect between the electorate and their representatives. It makes you wonder, why the gap?
Indeed. And this takes us straight to the strong arguments against electoral thresholds. The core belief driving that opposition in Parliament is that all voices in society, or as many as possible, should be represented there.
The principle of representation.
Exactly. Proponents of this view warn about the potential negative consequences if voices are excluded. This could lead to the emergence of extra-parliamentary forces, basically, groups trying to influence politics from outside the system.
Right, protests,
Or
movements.
potentially even extremism. I mean, if you look at the German system, for example, they have a 5% threshold,
Much higher.
much higher. And for a long time, it kept, say, populist right-wing voices out of the Bundestag. But now, those voices have found other avenues, and parties like the AfD have risen significantly in the polls anyway.
So exclusion doesn't make them disappear.
It shows that simply excluding voices doesn't make them disappear. It might just shift where and how they manifest, maybe even make them stronger outside the system.
So what does this all mean for the Dutch system then? How do we strike that crucial balance between ensuring every voice is heard or feels heard and maintaining a governable democracy?
It's the million-euro question, isn't it?
It clearly isn't easy, and it brings us to a really unique symptom maybe of this multi-party system, the allure of the new and the unique. Voters are often drawn to new, smaller parties, aren't they?
Especially during times of low political trust, it seems.
Yeah, the appeal of new people with a clean slate is powerful. We saw this with figures like Conan Roddy switching to J21, for instance.
And media attention plays a huge role, too.
Oh, absolutely. It can really boost the visibility and success of these smaller parties. Just look at how Caroline van der Plas and the BBB gained traction. Media was crucial.
Definitely. And speaking of striking cases, the source material introduced us to a truly unique one. Parties de Beer, or Party the Bear, led by a Colin de Beer.
Okay, Party the Bear. Let's unpack this because it's so unexpected, almost paradoxical.
It really is.
Parties de Beer has this seemingly, well, schizophrenic goal. Their sole purpose is to reduce the number of political parties.
Despite being a new small party themselves?
Exactly. They explicitly state they have no substantive policy standpoints on major issues like healthcare or migration. Their focus is purely on system reform.
It's almost a meta party.
It's a protest party against fragmentation itself.
It's certainly an intriguing strategy.
Yeah.
Their leader, Colin de Beer, describes them as wanting to be the last splinter.
The last splinter.
Yeah, aiming for just one seat initially, though they apparently dream of 5. And their core proposal is to effectively increase the seat threshold. Not necessarily a percentage, but maybe linked to the total number of seats.
How would that work?
Well, for example, if the total number of seats were increased to, say, 250, then instead of needing 0.7% of 150 seats, you might need, say, 8 actual seats for representation, making it much harder for tiny parties to get in.
Ah, I see. So raise the bar in terms of absolute seats needed.
Precisely. Public reactions, as you might expect, are mixed. Some find it cheerful but a bit unclear, while others definitely agree with the basic sentiment of wanting fewer parties.
It does highlight that dissatisfaction, doesn't it?
It really does. How much frustration there is with the current proliferation of parties.
So what does it tell you, really, about the current political mood when a party whose only platform is basically, let's have fewer parties emerges and actually get some attention?
It speaks volumes about voter frustration with the status quo, I think.
Definitely. Okay, so while these new voices are challenging the status quo in unique ways, what does this fragmented landscape mean for the traditional powerhouses? You know, the parties who've long shaped Dutch politics.
Good question. Let's turn our attention to, say, the VVD and the PVV.
Right. The VVD, for example, the Prime Minister's party until recently has been in a bit of a free fall in recent polls, according to the sources.
Which is actually a fairly common trend. You know, for coalition parties, after a government collapses, they often take the hit.
Someone has to take the blame, I suppose.
That seems to be the dynamic. And the VVD faces specific challenges right now. They're metaphorically, as the source put it, on the corner where the blows fall.
Taking hits from all sides?
Pretty much. They seem to be struggling to attract voters from the right, largely because they've excluded the PVV from potential coalitions.
That cordon sanitaire.
Right, and also from the left or center-left, where they're facing stiff competition from parties like the CDA. With its current leader, Bonnebal, the CDA is actually doing a bit better as an opposition party.
So the VVD is squeezed.
Very much so. It's a tough spot to be in.
Now, in contrast, the PVV, led by Geert Wilders, while it has dropped slightly in the polls mentioned, it still remains 4th overall.
Still a significant player.
It just goes to show that the old political adage, who breaks pays, meaning the party that causes the government collapse pays the price, doesn't always apply neatly, does it?
Not always, no. And the PVB clearly continues to attract voters who are looking for those clear, strong statements, particularly on migration. That message still resonates.
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture, especially leadership,
Yes, it's clear there's a significant popularity gap emerging between Wilders and Yasilkas, the relatively new VVD leader.
what do the numbers say?
Well, polling by Hart van Noterlin, mentioned in the source, revealed that only 43% of previous VVD voters actually wish Yasilkas to remain as leader.
Only 43%? That's low for your own voters.
It is. More than half actually want her replaced. The source even mentioned some suggesting Bente Becker, another prominent VVD MP, as an alternative. Though Becker herself apparently dismisses that idea completely.
Yeah.
But still, this internal sentiment points to a real leadership challenge for the VVD heading towards the election.
Right. Despite those rather stark numbers, the VVD's defense of Yeşilgöz's leadership and their party platform is quite strong, isn't it?
Oh, they're definitely putting up a defense.
They emphasize her, robust record as a justice minister, fighting organized crime, and her role as a powerful fashion leader.
Crediting her with plans on various fronts.
Exactly, credited with plans to make work more rewarding, tackling the housing market, improving safety, the whole package. They highlight having a strong election program with necessary migration proposals.
Which are apparently on page 64, if you're good.
Yes, very specific. The VVD seems to believe that with, 2 months still to go until the election at the time of the source, they have both the people and the program to convince voters.
Their goal being
To choose a center-right cabinet that works. That's the pitch. Stability and competence, essentially.
and of course, part of their strategy involves positioning their rivals. Their counter-argument to the PVV, for instance, is that Geert Wilders is social-economically left.
Trying to peel off right-leaning voters by highlighting differences beyond just migration.
Precisely, suggesting a fundamental difference in their overall policy approach.
Okay, so this deep dive has really shown us the unique fragmentation of Dutch politics, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
That ongoing debate about electoral thresholds, the intriguing strategies of new parties like Party the Bear, and the profound challenges faced by established ones like VVD in this shifting landscape.
It really underscores the complexities, of balancing broad representation with the need for effective governance.
It certainly does.
And I think, this deep dive really shows us that constant tension in democracy, the desire for maximum representation, for every voice to be heard, clashing with the practical need for stable governance. It's not easily resolved.
Yeah.
It leaves us, and you, the listener, with a fundamental question, I think, about how a political system evolves when voters are simultaneously seeking fresh alternatives, maybe out of frustration, and yet also yearning for stability.
That's a great point to reflect on, indeed. So, thinking beyond our discussion today, what stands out to you about how a country navigates that desire for diverse voices versus the very real need for a stable, functioning government? Something to mull over.